just making sure we've got everything. So we have our meeting this evening. You'll notice that I've got goldfish today. So each meeting will have a different theme so we can know where we're up to. Makes it a bit interesting. I'm Carol Theobald, the chair of the Zonta Says Now International Working Group. And I mentioned just now about how the last meeting, this is the working group, and our last meeting gave a summary which was circulated to you all. You had the summary list as well as the framework for action and the slides of the meeting. Is Dilruba there? No, I don't think she is. Our discussion tonight is how have you seen climate change impact women and girls in your country? So what I'd like to do is to put us into meeting rooms. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, there's 12 of us. So I'll put us into 3 meeting rooms of 4. And what I'd like you to do is to nominate a group leader who will feed back on your discussion. Okay, so the discussion is, how have you seen climate change impact women and girls in your country? Who was the leader in room 1 that would like to share the feedback from what they did? I'll stop the share. There we go.
That was me.
Oh, great. Oh, Jane, you got the short straw, yes. Did you?
Yes.
It was discussing.
Yes, so we had representing Scandinavia, Germany and Europe, myself in the United States, and we had Doris from Ghana. There's some interesting points overall that I think in our more developed nations of Scandinavia, Europe, and the United States, many of our Zontians are really not that engaged with our understanding of the issue of climate change, in part because they don't see the connections of how it is impacting women, and more, it's not more direct. In Germany, it's noted that more women tend to die with the heat and extreme weather events, especially those of older age. But one of the key things was more care work are impacted. The care work that women do are more impacted when we have extreme events. And also, a lot of low-income households are dominated by women, and those are disproportionately burdened when there are the extreme heat and other aspects.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States is much the same, and that we have extreme weather events and in a number of areas, but where a lot of this we're not all that aware of how it's disproportionately women. But certainly, again, low-income households that are dominated by females, and the issue of having to give care where most of the women are.
Mm.
And one of the interesting points made was the aspect of science. We have the lack of women in science that connect between the caring aspects of our community and the technical side of finding solutions or advances in the climate change world. And also that a lot of the newly created jobs that are emerging from addressing energy and climate tend to be in male-dominated fields. Mm. Which is an interesting aspect that, again, we need that more STEM support for women in fields, in those fields. Ghana, a lot more heat and rain, particularly, but especially the rain and the flooding conditions have affected homes, markets, and schools, in particular, enabling children to get to school, which then puts more of a burden on women to care for those kids who can't get to school with the flooding. And it's also impacting that the flooding is impacting the jobs that women have in markets and home care. I think we all agree that we needed a fact sheet and more efforts to try to increase our awareness in all of our Zonta members to connect between the Zonta mission and climate change.
Mm. Yeah. That's good. Thanks, Jane. Did anyone from your group have anything else to add? Did Doris, Marion, and Ulla Britt, was there anything else that you wanted to mention?
Excellency. Well, just to say that the 16 days of activism, I think will help us, I think, to be able to create more awareness to club members and then to address this issue as they come up.
Yeah. That's good, raise awareness. Excellent, excellent.
As a minority,
there we go. And in room 2, was Karen, were you leading that one? Or who was...
Karen, it's either you or
Judith was leading that one, right? Okay, Judith, would you like to share what you and Karen, Lisa, and Lotta were talking about?
Yeah. Okay. So Lisa from the United States, District 3, started off by saying that the United States is the world's largest polluter. So we ended with that sort of thing, that the global north, because all 4 of us were from the global north, need to be thinking about our impact on the global south. Mm-hmm. But in between, she talked about indigenous and racial minorities that are impacted much more. EPA, this is the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States, the toxic waste sites are usually located near the brown, black communities. And the infrastructure isn't set up to cope with things like hurricanes. So low-income housing, and this is where you find a lot of women who are caregivers. We talked about that as well, caregivers looking after the children and the elderly. A lot of low-income housing lines the shorelines, I guess, of the United States. And so this is where hurricanes have a big impact. And then the women are, left trying to rebuild. And we talked about this, but I'll get more into rebuilding with Germany. But she mentioned, and this was interesting, there's an environmental bond action that she talked to, that Lisa told us about. It's in New York, I guess, either for the city or the state. But anyways, the idea is to use money, borrow money, and build a lot more electric charging stations for Teslas, so that we can all afford a $60,000 Tesla and be able to go charge up our car and run around in our electric cars. And so we're saying, how many women, are going to be able to, if we're talking about low income, we're talking about caregivers and having to drive around, taking kids to school or take whatever, how can these women, benefit from electric charging stations? I forget if how much money did you say this was? $2 billion or something?
It was an astronomical amount of money. And the charging stations was like what they came out and were trying to sell the public on voting for this bond. And that's when I figured that they didn't have enough women at the table to talk about it.
Yeah. And this is one of the things we were saying then as well, I think most of us, that we need more women in decision-making positions. Because when these types of things come out, were there any women at the table who actually said, well, I don't think this is a very good idea. Could we think about having more public transit, free public transits for women, so women who are caregivers can get around the cities more easily? But anyway, so the burden, once again, is on the women, as the primary caregivers. Then Karen was also talking about the climate change and effect, like more flooding and things like that. And then communities are destroyed, maybe not completely destroyed, but a lot of things are destroyed, such as schools, because I think you mentioned a school that and needs to be rebuilt or needs to be. And so the rebuilding after these disasters, who is doing this? Who is creating the plans? Who is implementing them? And how to tackle all this rebuilding. And if it's the men and the men aren't too concerned, but are the women there once again at the table in the decision-making positions to be able to say, okay, this is what we need to do. This is what, would be good for us. So, and she was saying women are not well represented at the local level in Germany. Out of 10 mayors, 9 are men.
Right.
Yeah. the cities. So, yeah. So we need to really, yeah, this is one of the things we concentrated on, or we talked about a lot. Now, Lotta, though, in Sweden was saying that really there isn't much difference between men and women. Both men and women suffer equally from these effects of climate change, such as flooding or hurricanes or whatever is happening. So she doesn't see much difference in how men or women are affected. If rebuilding needs to be done, they get together and do it together.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then for Canada, I was saying that it's affecting our Indigenous people who live up north, the Inuit who live up north, because now this is probably both men and women who are affected. The permafrost is melting. Houses are built on the permafrost, and the permafrost is there for the foundations, stabilize the housing. So now that it's melting, houses are tipping over, collapsing. And then, of course, hurricanes. Now, Canada is well known for having so many hurricanes, but we had a disastrous hurricane last month that really affected our 4 maritime provinces. And we usually maybe get the tail end of a hurricane, but this one hit. So, and of course, the rebuilding that's going on, are the women once again being involved, or are they involved in rebuilding? Do they have positions of, you know, where they can make decisions about what to do? So that was something that we talked about. And domestic violence, well, a lot of homeless people, and in Canada, well, it's mostly the women who need to go to our shelters. The shelters are packed full, no room, because there isn't any transitional housing. And then the low-income housing. And there is a new bill that has been proposed in Ontario for rebuilding some low-income housing or whatever, but it's been very, very criticized by a lot of the women councillors in Ottawa. So I don't know if any women were at the table when they devised this law. I have to look into this more. This is just fairly new. We just had, by the way, municipal elections last month. So yeah, less than a month ago. So yeah, anyway, things are changing, hopefully for the better, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Fair enough. Okay, and Christine, did anyone from room 2 have anything else that they would like to add to the comments made by Judith? No? Okay, fine.
Well summarized.
Right, and then we'll go into room 3. I think, Christine, you were going to summarize that room's comments.
Thanks, Carol. Yes, we had, in our room, we had Mita from Germany, who spoke about India, a situation in India, and Angela from Germany, and me from Australia, with Carol making some comment too. So one of the problems in India with the increased or excessive heat is that in the fisher community, it's women who, by and large, buy and then sell the fish. But to sell the fish, they walk long distances to hawk the fish, and it's usually walking in bare feet. So it's the women there who are suffering from the heat, but they need to do this because they need the income from selling the fish. In Germany, as Angela mentioned, in Germany, they're privileged in the sense that the impacts are not so great and the government does step in and assist. But last year there were major floods in the Our Valley, which led to destruction of a lot of property, buildings, housing. And again, it was the women who were primarily affected because it's the women who have to step out. This has already been mentioned, but culturally, traditionally, it's the women who step out to provide the care for children and the elder care in that situation. In Australia, I talked about the fact we've had a lot of droughts and a lot of floods in the last 2 years. The both droughts and flooding have impacted on food crops, have also impacted on the fish in our major river system in Australia, and that's led to increased prices for fresh food and some kinds of fish, and there's a problem for particularly for lower income households, but the problem is for women, because it's the women who do most of the buying for food. It's probably fairly traditional. It's the women who prepare the meals. I would add to that in our Indigenous communities, there's a huge problem with domestic violence. And although I don't have any facts and figures for this, domestic violence, as we all know, does occur when the women can't do what is expected of them. So if they're not able to provide the meals, then potentially another impact of changing climate is that women suffer increased domestic violence. We know this happens in developing countries. I know this happens particularly in our Pacific Island nations. And Carol mentioned that in her home city of Perth in Australia, with the increased heat, last summer they had the hottest summer on record, there's a problem for people in the lower socioeconomic group, and particularly for women, particularly single mothers who tend to be in this category because they can't afford air conditioning. So they're suffering, trying to keep the families together and healthy. And I added to that after Carol moved on that what we're finding in my region, and I live in a regional area in South Australia, is that libraries have become heat refuges where women with children and the elderly who can't afford air conditioning come to the libraries knowing that's a cool place. I've also seen this phenomenon in shopping centres, another heat refuge place. So those are the things we discussed. We didn't actually get on to, as other breakout rooms did, onto women being involved in planning and designing ways to move forward and address impacts of climate change for women particularly. But yeah, that's where we got to. Thanks, Carol.
That's good. Thanks very much for the feedback from the rooms. And as we suspected, we've just had a handful of people just join the meeting because of the time zone 1 hour change has caught some people out. So we welcome Angela and Bobby have come on board now, and there's a couple of others have just come on board. Sheila just came on too, which is great. Welcome. So from the comments that everyone has been making, I was really interested in Lotta's comments with regards to not seeing the links where she is because everything's been impacted everyone equally. And so I think that's quite interesting to sort of, to understand that there will be many people that will be coming from that perspective. I know the other day I was doing a presentation to the Zonta Club of Toowoomba in Queensland, and they're a fossil fuel town. And when I was doing the talk, I was really pointing out the importance of the transition away from fossil fuels, but we need all those skills and knowledge of the people from the fossil fuel industry because they're really good at the engineering and the doing things at scale to transfer towards a more renewable energy focus. And how it was so important that women were part of that process. Because if we stopped fossil fuels overnight, the societies, the communities would be very heavily impacted. And when you get the social disruption, that's when you get the increase in violence, etc., for women. So when we're looking at the transitioning away from fossil fuels to a more renewable energy future, the women really need to be around that table, you know, as part of the planning, so we get that fair, just transition to the future. But also, as was mentioned earlier, as part of the discussion, we need to have the women involved, so as they get the jobs in the future, which will require more engineering, and the energy sectors in particular, with the renewable energies and the new technologies, for example. So that was just an angle I was talking with them about, because we tend to think of climate change as just being the weather impacts, but we do have those industrial impacts as we're transitioning towards new ways of being. And it's very easy to forget about those as well. But I really appreciate your comments just now. Did anyone have any other comments that they would like to make, or discussion points? Now's your opportunity. Just put my things on there. Lisa.
You know, I just wanted to make the point that, you know, women and children are usually the most vulnerable in any kind of disruption in society, a major disruption in society, whether it's war or famine or floods or this climate change that's happening, and certainly during COVID. So that, you know, it always strikes me as being ironic that that the most radical solutions are required to maintain the stability of our society, so that women and children can be safe. So that I think it's against our nature to want to necessarily shake the boat and disrupt everything. But if we don't, the consequences are so severe. So I think you know, it's a fascination with me that radical action is needed for a stable society.
Yeah, I love that. Radical action for stable society. Did anyone else have any other comments that they would like to make? More than welcome. Everyone's gone quiet. Everyone's gone quiet. Oh, no, that's good. That's good. Okay, so I've made notes of the combined comments today. So as I've been busily writing these things down, and so that's really important. Now, how would I need to take this information and bring it together so as we can put it into some form of fact sheet? Now, if you have a fact sheet, what sort of topics, how would you like to see it presented? Did you have any particular ideas as to how you would like to see it? No. Sort of things to do before an event, during an event, after an event, or macroeconomic things, or personal stories? Did any of you have a personal story relating to a climate event that can connect with the heart of the reader? Well, I'd like you to think about it. It might not be your own. Oh yes, Judith has got her hand up.
Well, I was just thinking that we could have some personal stories, I believe, from a couple of our Canada Caucus members who were really affected by that hurricane. They live in Nova Scotia, Halifax, and I believe she was without power for a couple of weeks or something and couldn't join our last meeting, and yeah, really struggling. So maybe, you know, we could find people from, you know, different regions or different areas who have been affected, who could give us a little story.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
If I can ask you to ask in your circles, that would be great. Bobby, you had something to add?
Yes. I do have a personal. I do have a personal story that might be relevant, although it goes back a few years, when Hurricane Katrina came through the United States and wiped out all of New Orleans, or a good portion of it. We were in touch with the Zonta Club down in New Orleans, and many of the members were unable to live in their homes. They had to move somewhere, anywhere, to get away, and then they had to supervise the reconstruction of their homes. And in talking to them, I ended up inviting and having one of the members from the Zonta Club in New Orleans come up to Virginia and stay with me and look for a temporary job in my area, because her school that she worked at was totally closed down because of the hurricane. So many people did not have jobs, and in schools, a lot of those people are women. And so she had to come to a whole other state, live with someone she didn't know, and try to find a job temporarily in our area, which she did. And she was able to work for the school system up here for about 6 months or more before she went back to New Orleans and tried to reestablish herself. But so many of the people in schools and hospitals are women. And when those shut down, people are without a way to support themselves.
Yes.
I just thought I'd share that.
That's a good point, actually, because you tend to find that if those that are involved in the construction industry, they get very lot of work, don't they? Because they're having to rebuild. But those that have been in the caring industries have to do so under pressure in optimum conditions. And as you say, there's nowhere for them to work because the hospitals and schools have gone. Wow. Good pickup.
Carol.
Yes.
Sorry.
Hi,
Is this Sheila? Sorry, my picture, my Zoom is not working really well, so you have to put up with a nicer picture than my look at this time of the morning. In the West here, Western US, is California, Nevada, and Arizona. And there's some states next to it. But these are quasi-desert communities, and the issue is water. So we receive in Nevada, I live in Nevada, but through Nevada and Arizona, our water comes from the north. And our lakes are drying up here, some of the largest lakes that we have in the Western US. And water is an issue. Now, I don't know that there's a faucet that we could turn on, but I think we need to raise the issue because of many of the states and the cities and the counties are reducing the volume of water allowable, such as watering your lawns, or don't wash your dishes every single day. Anything that you can do to reduce. So I see water as a very major topic.
Good. Okay, that's great. Okay, well, I think we've had some. Did you enjoy the session of talking to people from other parts of other districts? Yeah.
Yes, and I think it's right what Lisa said. We have to really be radical, more radical, and we can learn from that. I mean, we have to talk about the most vulnerable people as well and have them in mind. And I think it's also very important to hear personal story from them, not to forget about them, because we as Zontians are mostly privileged, even if it comes to the worst sometimes. We can rebuild on our network, which is great, and things like that. But there's so many people out there who don't have anything, nothing to rebuild anymore, stuff like that. And of course, even in the United States and even in the Ahrtal in Germany. And so, yeah, that's what we have to watchdog, I think. Yeah.
No.
That was good point from Lisa.
Yeah, excellent comment. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, well, we'll move on, and thank you for your contribution to that discussion, and we'll see how we go. I'll just share the screen to keep myself on track. We had right, we're talking about what we were doing, feedback from the discussion. Come on, there we go. And next thing, right, the progress on the Zonta app. How are you going using the app? Do you all have access now? At the last meeting, some people didn't have access, and we just want to make sure that if people who had problems, have you had chance to talk to Zonta International? No. Everyone was fine, were they? Good. Good. So I just wanted to check on what was going on there. So did anybody need training on the Zonta app? No?
You know, Carol, it's Lisa. It's so funny. I use the Zonta app to talk to my fellow governors, but I have never quite understood how the groups work, how you're supposed to tag things. So, I mean, I could certainly ask someone from ZI, or find a 12-year-old, but I just had not been able to figure it out on my own.
Yeah, I find there's some subtleties in that app that I'd like to know more about. So what I was thinking is that on our next meeting, perhaps we'll get someone from ZI to go through it with us, so as we're actually find some way of doing that. So as we're all on the same page with it, and we've all got a good understanding of what's possible with it, so we get the best use out of it. So I'll see if I can arrange that. Good. The next thing was, right, the meeting times for the polls. I sent out a list showing some ideas for future meeting dates. And I just want to see if the third Sunday of the month is amenable for people, if that works for you or not. So what I was going to do was just do a poll first, and it's just really a yes/no poll. So we'll see if it works. So I'll launch the poll, and if you just answer yes or no, if the third meeting of the month works for you. Okay, well, it's working through. Right, excellent. Okay, I'll end that one, and the answer was, oh, hang on, yes, it's good. Oh, I haven't got more people now. Yes, 100% of people have said that. Share results. There we go. I'm never quite sure if this shows up on the screen or not. So the results of the poll. Anyway.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
Oh,
yes.
good. That's all right then. I'm glad that just let me know, because I'm never quite sure what shows up on your end. Now, the next question. So if it's the third Sunday of the month, these would be the meeting dates, okay, as we go through the year. Please note that we won't have a meeting in December, because I think that most people are too busy. And I think we just give us that's your thinking month, okay, in December. So we can think about what things you'd like to do. I'll give you some reading to do. Now, next one. Now, this is the meeting times. I went through and found just some times. I've put everything in universal time here, but you've got some ideas of where the different time zones are. Okay, this is for the Sunday, the 15th of January. Okay, the 15th. So option 1, option 2, option 3, and option 4. So what I'd like you to do is to look through those times and think of your first preference and your second preference. We will have 2 polls, one poll for your first preference and one poll for your second preference. Okay, so you only answer one answer for each poll. The first poll will be for your first preference. So I'll just make a note of the options there. Option 1, 2, 3, 4. Which options work best for you? All right. We'll see how this goes. Yes, Judith.
I'm very time challenged, I can tell you. So the 12 noon midnight UTC. So, okay, I see they're just 12 hours difference. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
So in here.
Right.
So I think that we have Chicago, I think, is closest to you, is it?
Yeah, closest to me, it's 1 hour difference, but yeah, that's fine.
CST, yes. I've tried to pull out, I've tried to pull out a few ones in there too. There should be something close to you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Right, we'll go into the polls and we'll see if this works. Let's see how I go to the next one. Next poll meeting. Right. So you'll see here, you only have to put one answer. Okay, your first preference, just one answer. Right, so, okay. Has everybody voted? Let me see, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right, everyone's voted. I'll end the poll. And you can see here that we have Option 1 is the first option. Option 4 was number 2. Option 2 was number 3, and option 3 was the lowest scoring. Okay, so that was 7, 5, 3 was 1, and that was 2. All right, good. I'll stop sharing that one. The next poll is for the second preference that you have. Okay. So. Right, so we have option 4, which is 1, 7, 0, 2. Right, okay. Has everybody, 5, 8, 13. Has everybody voted? I think we need one more person to vote, I think. I think that's it, that's right. Okay, so we have 3, 3. In the poll, share results. So there we have option 4 was number 1, and this, are we tied for option 1 and 2? That's good. 4. All right. Okay. So what this means is, okay, I'll move over here. Right, what do we make this mean? So the first preference was number 1, but was the first preference, and number 4 won for the second preference. Okay, so what we can do is we can either hold a meeting every alternate month. So one meeting 1 month will be on option 1, and the next meeting would be on option 4, or we can hold 2 meetings each month. Okay, I'll stop share. Oh no, I better keep it on share so you can see the times. So can I have some comments? What do people think? Can I have your discussion, please? And what I'll do is I'll put you into breakout rooms, and then you can discuss it in a breakout room, and then we'll come back. Just have a couple of minutes, okay? I'll just put you into breakout rooms, and I'll put you into 4 rooms. Add a room. Recreate. I'm going to recreate them, so I'll put them to right. See what happens. Bobby, you should have got an invitation to join a meeting, so just join. And goes in there. Have you got it? You're on mute. I'll put you in. Okay, Mafusa, you should have got one as well. I'll put you into, you should be join in. Mafusa, I think you should have joined into room 2. You might have got an invitation just to click a button. Okay, perhaps you're not just there at the moment. Okay. I'll just give a minute for the rooms to people to go in. Okay, I'll just close the rooms off. 60 seconds. Okay. Right, everyone's coming back. 987. Good. 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Right, everyone should be coming back now. So, what was your verdict? Okay. Did you want to have 2 meetings or 1 meeting with alternate times? Or something different?
I think I have a comment I want to make.
Please
Can
do,
I
Doris.
Yes. On the options, I'm in Ghana. For now, the UK works for me because it's GMT. However, I don't have Accra, Ghana in there. I am purely GMT. I see Lagos there, but Lagos is an hour ahead of us.
Right.
So I would be happy if that is put in. And however, 1 meeting a month for me is fine. But my time zone is not in there.
Yes, I couldn't put all the time zones in because it wouldn't fit on the slide. So I tried to put them across the different time zones as best I could. So as you know, they were within an hour or so, because you could work out your time from those few ones there. Otherwise, the slides would be too big. Yeah.
Okay. But for now, the UK works for me because that is GMT. But if the UK goes ahead, then it means that I'm not captured in any of these. Yeah. That's my only issue. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we all experience that as well, because we have time shifts as well with daylight saving and things too. So it does get complicated. But these times are just for the 15th of January. Okay, so that's the time zone for the 15th. So on another month, we'd have to show different times.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a pleasure, Doris. Was there any other comments that people had? What was your would you like us to repeat the meeting 2 times in the month, or have it alternate months so it's a horrible time 1 month but okay the next?
I think we decided that less was more and that we could share the pain.
Share the pain. Okay, share the pain. Any advance on share the pain, you know? So
1 meeting a month,
yeah, I mean, we either have 1 meeting a month or it's the same meeting doubled up. That's how I was meaning. So it's the other way around. Okay, so we'll share the pain. We'll try it. Okay, so for the meeting in January, we'll go with option 1. Okay, and then so January is option 1, and February will be the equivalent to whatever option 4 is, giving time zones, etc. Okay, and we'll try that and we'll see how it goes. So in the March meeting, we'll go back to option 1, and in the April, it will be the option 4. Okay, and we'll see how we go. And if we find it's not working, we'll try something different. Okay, but we'll try it first off. Next thing, we're nearly at the end. That's the results. Any other business? I noticed that one of the members of our group, Hasna Mudud, she's actually been attending COP27 in the last week or so. So I've asked her to write an article on what her experience was, so we'll be able to share it with the group here, because I'm sure we're all interested in what happens behind the scenes. And Christine, you sent me some articles about some environmental things. Would you like to just talk to those? Because I'd like to share them with the group.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah, look, what Carol's talking about is a study that was done on behalf of the Asian Development Bank, looking at the law and policy frameworks for climate change, for addressing climate change impacts and gender, human rights, gender equality. I'm not sure the word equality was used, but and they chose 3 countries, Fiji, Laos, and Mongolia. So what the ADB has produced is a report on a framework approach to law and policy to address gender equality in the context of climate change, adaptation for climate change, and then reports on those 3 countries on their laws and policies, and what, for the benefit of the governments and society, what needs to happen in the context of the framework. So I found those reports really useful for, well, in Zonta terms, for advocacy by Zontians to their own governments to address these, or to have a look at the frameworks and preferably amend their laws and policies to comply with the frameworks. So yes, I've sent those the links to those reports to Carol, but you might find that they're useful, or at very least make interesting reading. That could be useful in an advocacy context.
No, and I think it'd be really useful reading over the break, so during December. So give you an opportunity to digest them and think about how they could be rolled out elsewhere, how we can apply the framework to other places. The next thing, thank you very much for sharing those, Christine. That's really useful. The next thing we were going to, oh yes, if we want to have an Intercontinental think tank Facebook page in the future, if you'd like to do that sort of thing, just could you let me know, because we'd be looking for a volunteer to help progress things along. So have a think about that, and please let me know if you'd be interested in doing something in that area. And so following our polls today, our next meeting will be on Sunday, the 15th of January, and it will be the option 1 time, which I've forgotten what it was already. Was that midnight? I think it was, wasn't it? Let me see.
It should be the same as today.
As today. There we go.
Today.
12 noon. Is that the same as today? Yeah, same as today. Okay, that's good. So this is the one for the 15th of January. Did anyone have any comments or things that they would like to make before we close the meeting today?
No, I think I just wanted to add that we all should have a look at the outcomes of COP, of course, and you said that there will be an article as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and also in Europe on the special situation, on the topic of losses and damages,
yeah,
but as well on the topic of this ECT treaty. But that's what I can discuss also in a small group. But that's a very interesting thing, which an issue which touches everybody in the end.
In the end.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that's good. If there's last opportunities for anything else that anyone would like to share.
Carol, before we go, could you just briefly again talk about the fact sheet that you want us to think about in terms of putting that together?
Yes. So with the fact sheet, what we want to try and do is to draw the links to make the links between climate change and gender equality quite clear, so that Zontians, wherever they are, it's quite simple to understand. And it's seen as quite logical. And what we were trying to do today was have discussions where we could bring out what the realities are in the various countries where we're all living. So it's actually real to the Zontians that are there. And so what we'll do is we'll put together some of the commentary that we had today of the main things that came out from the discussion. And some of those related to, the response to intense weather events, some related to the ingrained poverty that many women have, which amplifies their ability to bounce back from a climate disaster. And some of the like someone was talking about you know, we've got grants for Teslas, but they're not necessarily accessible or suitable for women. So we need more women's voices around the table to give us this equality as we move into transitioning into a more renewable world. So the fact sheet needs to try and encompass that in a short, meaningful stories or in a narrative that makes it very easy for Zontians to join the dots. And I haven't got the answers to how we're going to do that yet, but we'll do some drafts and share them round, and then we'll shape it between us. So from what we've got today, we'll put the first draft down, and then from your comments, it will shape it and make it better. So that's the idea. All right. So it's one step at a time.
Quick comment. Yes, quick comment. Since we've added the Zonta Says Now to climate change for the 16 days of activism, it would be good if we could give some reminder or something, so that as we go along with the 16 days, we'll have that in mind and create the awareness so that we can start pushing that before all the fact sheets are finalized. Right. I think that would help, because we only have it as a statement, but I think we should make some statement to them so that they can run with it over the 16 days. Thank you.
That's great. So what would be good is if any of you can think of a particular statement that you would like now, stick it in the chat line, which would be good, or email me something at info@zontasaysnow.org.au. And then that way we can try and get some short messaging that we can share amongst this group, and then this group can share amongst their clubs or their districts, and we can move the message through that way. Okay. And so if anyone has any graphics or things that they can use in this space that they would be willing to share, please forward those as well. Okay. Is there anything else before we go?
Carol, this is Angela.
Hi, Angie.
North America, we just did a think tank yesterday on food insecurity, and part of our closing, we had like 32 items that people could incorporate into 16 days of climate change. So we'll get that PowerPoint to you, and we broke it out. So that'll be a fast, easy, here you go, here's some info.
That's fantastic, Angela. So we can share that one around. Big gold star to the caucus. Excellent. Excellent. And this is what it's all about, ladies. It's just sharing what we've got. We don't have to start everything from the beginning. Everyone's working on things in different parts of the world. Let's share it so as we can, you know, make a difference to this area. Okay, well, I really want to thank you all today for joining in at different times. And I wish you all the best of the holiday season, I think it's called in the USA. And I look forward enormously to seeing you all again in January. And we shall, so those are going to join in the horrible hours. Thank you so much for doing so. And rest assured that the half of the group will be joining in the horrible hours in February. So we'll share out the pain, okay? So I wish you all the best for the rest of the year. And
can we do something at the end of the round? Certainly. I would love to unmute everybody and to say goodbye together.
Good.
So if everybody unmutes, it's all
unmute. All unmute. Okay, I'm gonna go. 1, 2, 3. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Karen.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.